Good morning and welcome to today's webinar, which is the sort of almost provocatively titled, What's Missing from Your Coaching Website? This is sort of a topic that, as I was saying earlier, runs a little bit far afield of coaching software itself, because we're going to get into kind of an opinionated look into, well, if you're presenting your coaching offering to the world, most commonly it's a website, but it could also be a brochure or a pitch deck, a social media presence, other things like that. There may be some things that are missing that could make it better. And by better, I mean more compelling, more resonant, easier to sell, more of an attractive offer, more elucidating and illustrative of the way that you work that'll have the people that want to work with you, that really want to get what there's to get out of working with you, say, yes, this is it for me. This is the one, this resonates, and I want in. So let's get right into it. Like I said, it's a bit far afield, and this is a talk that is going to be highly opinionated. Highly opinionated, possibly controversial, because again, I'm kind of, from my vantage point of not really knowing your businesses and not really being in your world of it, going to make a lot of suggestions that are might fly in the face of what you've already been doing in terms of presenting your coaching, and offer some ideas that you may never have considered, or maybe have considered a bad idea, and I'll be doing my best to sort of make the case for why they could be a good idea. So in that highly opinionated nature, I say sorry, not sorry. Again, I might be going out of my purview as a provider of a coaching software platform, but I can also provide an awful lot of insight based on our own findings here at CoachAccountable Labs and our own sort of doing things as, presenting a coaching platform, which has some overlap with presenting coaching services writ large. One of the ideas that I want to sort of give you guys to tee this up real fast is the idea of DIY marketing for the win. Now, if you're a solo coach and just getting started doing a startup, or even if you've been on it for yourselves, if you're solo, it's likely you don't have your own marketing department. Even if you're a small team, it's likely you don't have your own marketing department. And the bigger you get, the more likely it is that maybe you have a marketing department, or on a less extreme level, you might have hired some professional, a marketing firm, do a contract job. Hey, I'd like a website. I'd like you to do my customer research. I'd like you to write some copy to make my offering more compelling. Help me express to the world what it is that we do so that it can be more of a compelling presence. And I say DIY marketing for the win. I don't usually make sentences that are 2/3 acronyms, but by doing it yourself, you really can have a benefit over any sort of creative outsourcing, whether or not you're at the scope of a coaching company that has a budget for that kind of allocation. And I want to sort of share the little story of when CoachAccountable actually hired a marketing firm to do our website, a redo of the whole what you see at CoachAccountable.com. Nothing to do with the app, but like, hey, well, maybe someone can tell the story better because I'm not a professional marketer. That's not what I do. We spent nearly $30,000 doing that whole project. Pretty design, layout, architecture of the flow of the thing, copywriting, interviews with our users. By the way, anyone who's on the line who filled out that years ago, thanks for your input. Unfortunately, it didn't come to much. The problem was all that stuff looked really great. And even I looked at them like, well, okay, these are the professionals. That's what they say to do. We flipped the switch and our signups dropped. Instead, they didn't just even stay the same. We hoped for a lift, of course, but our signups dropped 40%, sustained over 2 weeks. And I learned something, a painful lesson that I share with you today that hopefully you guys will never have to learn. Whether you think you do or not, you guys as on the forefront of running your business, being intimately familiar with your expertise and what you do, having talked to and worked with the people you've talked to and worked with in the context of running your business gives you a leg up in being able to empathize with your customers, speak their world, know what's important to them, that no professional company will ever be able to touch, not at the same level of intimacy. You might be able to hire them and pay many high-priced dollar per hour hours for them to do their research and do their interviews to get in there. But you have this edge yourself by being in it yourself that is very hard to replicate and allows you to leverage what I will be giving you today, which is just a little bit of insight into how to do some marketing, so how to do some copywriting, how to write words that resonate. that combination of a little bit of methodology coupled with your own expertise will actually give you an edge over any sort of fancy hiring of a person who's not really in your world, not really in your business ever could. And that's just great because, again, this is not really meant to be as a webinar lesson, a one in copywriting and marketing, but it kind of accidentally has to be because it's the copywriting that creates a context for the actual visuals that I want to share with you that are more Coach Accountable centric, gives them a context, gives them a purpose, a reason for being a way to tee up the appreciation in the eyes and listening of those who you are pitching to or who are visiting your website. So that's what I mean by do-it-yourself marketing for the win. I'm going to give you some tools to actually be a great marketer yourself, even if you've never considered yourself much of a marketer and think that that might be the realm of, well, I need to hire someone to do that. So there's going to be two angles by which to approach that I vaguely alluded to earlier. The first one is words that resonate. And that resonate, I'm using the word resonate kind of as a term of art here. Of course, it has its meaning and connotation, but I want to specifically say, we could say sell, words that compel, words that illustrate, words that get into people's world, words that succeed at conveying whatever it is you're conveying. All those sort of angles are kind of insufficient, but the whole of it is what I'm going for when I use resonate. That whole package of someone being able to read the words that you write when you're presenting yourself as a coach, as a coaching service provider, and say like, oh, wow, this is great. They're in my world. This is speaking to things I know I want. And by the way they talk, by the way they're presenting, I know they get me and my problems, and they might even be able to solve them. That's the kind of resonance that I'm looking for. And so we're going to look into writing words that resonate. And similarly, I'm going to use that term that's sort of now just defined, resonate. That sets the stage for visuals that resonate. Visuals become a powerful touch point by which to appreciate and better lock in and internalize and recall the words. And the 1-2 punch combo is what I'm looking to give you guys today about how to spruce up your website or your pitch deck or your anything else with those two things, words and visuals that resonate. Now, marketing, of course, is a huge discipline unto itself, a big convoluted symphony of many different parts and skill sets that all come together in a piece of experience for those checking out who are interested. But we're going to have today a luxury of finding there's a way to really cleanly separate these two tasks, and that the net result of those two tasks, each handled separately, can come together really quite beautifully. So that's sort of the abstract look at what I'm doing. Let's actually go through a process with a hypothetical coaching firm. There's a mock here, the site that I've set up here, and we're going to chat to everyone. If you'd like, you can follow along. You can, of course, follow along with my screen. That might be ideal because then you won't be tempted to go ahead and sort of get out of sequence and all that. But it also will allow you to, at your own pace, read some of the things that I've got set here. And this is really meant to be something that you can revisit after I've talked through all these ideas, these points about how this is crafted, to have this be your own sort of little example from which to work from, to work through, and ultimately apply to your own website. So, as I say here in this introduction here, this is going to be a mock company called The Calm Professional. It's a hypothetical coaching company that does career coaching. Now, I picked career coaching because that has a lot of it almost sits at the bridge between life coaching and professional business coaching, which means that some of the ideas and the things that we're going to talk about should resonate with or are likely to resonate with whatever sort of niche coaching world that you're in. Again, we're going to go through this in a very abstract way, but not necessarily talking to what your kind of coaching you do, but the idea should translate pretty well. It's going to be, we're going to deal with a before coaching site copy, very Spartan, very basic, and that's by design because, of course, the process of making a coaching website and anything else has its own little design thing with a mood and aesthetic and images that convey and communicate all that. That's fine. I want to make it strip all that down for this exercise into something very Spartan where the words themselves, the before and after picture, can kind of speak for themselves, and then you can embellish from there. So let's get started and look at the before page. And as I've said here, it's a good page. It has a lot of elements that I find on a lot of coaching websites that are kind of common. Things like, here's who we are and what we do. Here's how we see the world. Here's what we see to do. Here's who we work with. Here are our accreditations, here are credentials, here's what proves that we're the real deal. Another thing that's common is a diagram like this that, again, does that powerful thing called, like, let's translate words and put them into, images that speak, and a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that's certainly true in all cases. One of the things that you'll notice here is that, or that I'd like to point out, is these sorts of diagrams are good. However, they often convey an awful lot of expertise, methodology, hard-earned wisdom, and distill it down very beautifully. There is a trap that you might, that again might be a controversial assertion here, that this has a lot more meaning. These sorts of abstract diagrams that show processes that, again, are very common, they mean a lot more to you who's knows and has internalized all of the behind, that all the thought work and great meritorious things that went in them. But to a casual observer, they're not loaded with as much. So you might overestimate that this is the importance and value and interest to your audience about things like this. And again, as we get into the after thing, I'm going to go into things that are going to be more resonant, more immediately approachable and understandable, and valued to people who are just casually checking you out, just looking at your services to begin with. Another thing that I have here is a nod to certification and credentialing and all this. Now, that is immensely important. That sort of foundation of having those things means that you'll be able to reliably deliver. And having that is sort of a foundation of being able to deliver on what your promise is. I want to challenge your thinking, though, to assert that that's not front and center on what your people who are checking you out are looking for. They may be looking for it after they're really compelled in what you've already put forth in terms of how you actually work, what you actually do, what sort of results you actually, get with your clients. They may be like, hey, this sounds pretty great. Who is this? Is this person the real deal? And then that sort of nod to credentialing can be, there to back up that already formed curiosity and interest. Having it in reverse, however, hey, look at how many credentials I have, look at all this experience I have, it can fall flat because it's like, okay, cool, but I don't yet know to care about that. So in the sort of, one of the ideas that I'll posit here is there are certain things that may seem more important to you, but less important in the eyes of the people who are actually looking at you, who don't know you, who don't have an idea of what it means to have a certain acronym after your name, who haven't done that work and can't conceptualize what that all entails quite this way you do. So that's the our before picture. And again, we end with a nice little common consult form called, like, hey, drop us information, we'll be in touch. And it sort of leaves it at that. So I want to now introduce an idea called mapping out your customer's perspective. It's an exercise in getting that empathy for what does someone who is interested in my coaching services, what do they care about? What's important to them? If they came here, they have a certain set of concerns that we can assume. And if I'm a good fit for them, these are probably the things that they're saying to themselves. These are probably the things that they are interested in. And that customer perspective is a simple exercise that I recommend every coach do as a foundation for doing any sort of telling the story of your coaching services. So in this exercise of mapping out a customer's perspective, we're just going to answer 3 simple questions about someone who is considering what we're offering. As you can see on the website, it says, in this example, someone who is considering career coaching. 1 is, what do they want? 2 is, what do they fear? And 3 is, what's in their way? So taking some time to brainstorm on those 3 things, just a few minutes with each one of those and sit with those. Come up with some bullet points, just a handful will do. And you want to sort of make it in the language that your actual customers would actually use. What do people actually say? So here's what I did. I'll just kind of go through it quick and reveal kind of what I did. So under the customer perspective map, here's what I came up with. Like I say here, none of these is the answer. It's not like anyone has some magical teacher's edition textbook, the back of which you can find the actual correct answer for this one is. No, this is a creation. This is an exercise in getting in your client's head and giving your best shot at empathizing with them and coming up with ideas that are probably in line with what they've done. And here's a place where you can absolutely trump a professional marketer. you've actually had these conversations with your clients or your would-be clients, your prospective clients seeking out the solutions you provide. You've heard them say what they say. You've heard them express in their own words what they express when they go. So for what do they want? I kind of put together a few of them. I think someone who's going into career coaching, often wants to say, I want to feel in control of my life. I want to live it on my own terms. I want to have a prosperous career that gives me some freedom and to do things. I want to be working on things that I find meaningful. There's a lot of people who are engaging in career coaching who are just feeling like they're kind of in a rut and doing something pedestrian, and they'd like to be able to move up and into more life-giving roles. I want to feel less burnt out. That's a very common want. Pursuing professional, glory and bliss often comes with this idea of like, I have to sacrifice everything to get ahead, and wanting to alleviate that pain is something that is a common one. And then another one, just more, again, tactical, like I want that next promotion. I want to stand out. I want to be well rewarded for how great I am at this sort of thing. These are the things that our hypothetical customer wants here. And again, I hope as you're going along with and listening along here in this webinar, think about what are the kind of things that your customers are saying. What are your actual clients expressing to themselves, muttering to their breath, telling to their significant other, saying with frustration. The next subject that I want to go into is what do they fear? Again, this is our next sort of exercise in the brainstorming exercise. Like, what sort of things do people who are pursuing coaching, your style of coaching, any style of coaching, what do they fear? Again, this is one of those ones that I think is kind of universal. A lot of these, like, it won't work for me, or maybe this will just be a bunch of stuff that I've already heard, so why did I pay someone money to tell it to me? Or this is going to be some woo-woo stuff that'll be embarrassed that I signed up for. Again, one of the things that I think is very powerful when you're writing copy for your own coaching is recognizing that there's a whole wide world of people out there, some of which who have experienced coaching, who know coaching, who are familiar with like, yeah, coaching is great, that's a thing, and it totally works. But there's a much larger slice of the population who still has that air of skepticism or just mere confusion about like, oh, that's a sports thing, or oh, that's just someone being a professional cheerleader, or giving advice and you pay them money. Coaching, of course, is much more than that, but we assume that everyone knows that to the exclusion of that much larger slice of the population. So being responsible for what are perceptions of coaching and how can, again, be aware of what fears might our would-be customers have, our would-be clients have. So this is going to be some woo-woo stuff that'd be embarrassed that I signed up for, and a hard sell one, again, most deals with engaging with doing business. I'll be suckered or pressured into something. These are common fears. This one, again, I crafted in response to the idea of a hypothetical person visiting our hypothetical company. But I think a lot of these bullets are pretty universal and worth having in your own radar as you write and to speak to them. And then the third thing, what's in the way? One of the things some of the things I came up with are, again, very universal. What's this really going to cost? How much time is this really going to take? What is it that I'm actually getting myself into? What the heck is this really? I mean, I want what they're promising, but how's it going to look? And then another one, which is, again, anyone who traffics in any, the knowledge-based economy or any derivations of which coaching, is arguably in that realm. Like, well, doesn't this stuff exist? Can I figure this out myself? And if I can't, what does it mean about it myself if I can't? Again, pretty universal stuff. Hopefully it resonates with you. Is like, I could see my clients and my would-be clients thinking these things. But again, this is something where if you take a little time to do this exercise yourself, you can kind of come up with some interesting insights. And now we apply this. So the rewrite is an exercise in truly speaking to these concerns. The last one, the before picture was a lot to do with, okay, here's what we know to say, here's our credentials that we know to do, here's how we see to show our process, here's how we see the world. Who wants to work with us? If you are writing armed with this customer perspective map, that again can be done in about 12 minutes easily. I took about 8 minutes to come up with this. So take an afternoon, make a nice hot tea. This is a great exercise in getting in the world of your clients and see what you come up with. Writing from this just kind of flows. So when we go to the rewrite, and again, I won't just read this verbatim, that would make for a very boring webinar, but you'll see as I go, there's a lot that kind of speaks directly to those bullet points. You could even write this out saying like, okay, I'm responsible for checking off or crossing out all of these bullet points from our customer's perspective map as I write this. And we can see here when I color code highlight it that, you know, the what do they want in green, the what do they fear in red, the what's in their way. There are a lot of instances where basically this copy very elegantly fell out of that map, where I just, wherever appropriate, put nods to and mentions of, yeah, here are the things that you're probably thinking of as per my map. Again, getting the map accurate is its own step to be done, but you've been talking to your clients for as long as you've been doing it, and so you probably have a better access into getting it right than maybe you even think. So when you've got it right, you just include them. And if it's, again, aligned with what you actually do, what you actually can provide, then there's real authenticity. You're not just brainstorming and saying like, okay, I'm just making up stuff to, this is what you want to hear. It's better than that. You're in their world and you're crafting and fitting what it is you do to those very real things that they care about. So again, you know, the green things, I want to do work that's meaning and fulfilling. I want to stand out and be well rewarded, not a slave to a report. Some of the what's in, you know, the fears that we address, we're going to skip the just knowledge, you know, we're going to actually do something that's meaningful. Concrete plans, keeping score. It's not just a bunch of ideas that you've heard. What if it's not working? Well, we know these are easy to make, or we'll refund your money. Things like policy you might put front and center. You might be inspired to put things that are front and center because you realize, hey, there are legitimate fears here. Let me do what I can and be responsible for taking them off the table. And then a lot of the blue stuff is really the tactical stuff. You're like, okay, I'm not sure if this is for me. What am I getting myself into? Am I prepared for this? Well, we go into some detail about what it works. We even name the pricing. We show the time commitment. We show here's how this is more than just a bunch of conversations. If your coaching is just conversations, that can just be very powerful. But as a user of CoachAccountable, you are armed with a lot of things that can make it much more than conversations. You can see things and handle derailments like we've covered in other lessons. And that ability allows you to sort of say loud and proud, like, this is how it works. This is not just something that you fear might be not worth your money. This is a much more comprehensive, thought out, supported experience that is process based and not just a conversation and a phone call on a notebook. So we've got this rewrite. I again encourage you to give it a read, as it were, offline after this lesson. Compare it to the before and after. And what I hope you'll find is that the before rings as true. Like, that wasn't just some sort of like lame duck version, a straw man for me to tear apart, like, oh, look how much better it is with you know, my strategy, these techniques. The before, you might be able to see some elements of yours in it, and to the degree that you do, you can say and pat yourself on the back, this is a good and solid presentation. But what I'm hoping you'll find is, again, when you read the after, again, informed by that customer perspective map, this actually resonates like, huh, I could see this actually giving my customers a certain sense of comfort, addressing their fears, a certain sense of clarity, figuring out and dispelling what's in their way and giving them a clear sense of what's going on, and a certain sense of excitement. Ooh, I'm really being responsible for talking about the things that they want, that I've heard them say they want. And I'm saying like, yes, let me connect the dots between what I do and what you're looking for, building that bridge for themselves. You cannot assume that they can or will do it automatically by themselves. And that's the power of this copywriting technique. So the next step that we're going to do, you know, any questions about copywriting? I know I've crammed an immense subject into about a 6-minute treatise and technique in doing that. Let's continue on to the next part. That's our piece on words. So now, armed with these words that sort of set the context for visuals that will then really bring it home or bring it to a fine point, there are things that we can add to our website that will make it a little more compelling, a little more, hey, here's how this works, here's how we do things, and so on. I've turned off the highlighting for this, but I've added a few things. So one thing that you can kind of have is a nice little nod to, you know, you can have a little client embedding widget website. Part of this webinar actually is a lesson on a common question that we get. How do I integrate CoachAccountable into my website? Well, sprinkling these little elements, both functional and just visual, are ways to do that. So having a little client login widget, which can appear like here with the click. If we go down, we see, you know, we're mentioning this portal where we again say front and center, like, hey, you get this thing as part of the service. There are cool things that happen with it. Well, let's show them. There's power in actually being able to say not just words, but having the visuals to back it up. So a nice little screenshot of what a little coaching relationship looks like. Here in this instance, I basically took the demo client that you guys all have preloaded with your account and took a straight up screenshot. You guys will be able to possibly anonymize an actual client, but what you might do instead, and again, this will take you an hour, maybe two, to actually sort of do a little cutting and pasting and contriving of some elements that are, again, typical of your common coaching relationship to sort of precede something that you can then share little bits from. Just as I did make that, that document theme client that allows you guys to see what a coaching relationship can look like. Another thing that I sprinkled in was embedded metrics. So as you guys may or may not know, you can actually take live metrics and have them be little embedded things in your site. This was, again, a little contrived metric. If you guys remember the metrics webinar last week or last month, there are things that you guys do when you're guiding your clients to be better at whatever they're working on. One of the things that's very powerful is to have them track sort of a before and get a baseline of like, well, when it comes to this thing that's important to you, what's it like currently? And then you can work with them, inside of your methodologies, your distinctions, and start to, record an after picture that tells a story. For this one, I have a client where I just, made my own little hypothetical client and fit in, again, data that's sort of representative of a common client, just filling out a metric and making these. And then when you click the edit icon, you can find the controls to embed this metric. This little snippet of code can be pasted right into your HTML, and then you've got it embedded. So this live window into it, an interactive thing, can tell a story. And as this little caption here says, like, there's the visual, but most of the points that should go full story. This is kind of cool, where it's like, again, you being front and center. Here are the kind of results that happen with people who work with us. Another thing sprinkled in, just another, again, look at, some of the work that people do, an action plan that someone was working on with the Calm company. And, this kind of dovetails right nicely on, like, here are the sort of things that we do, and we guide you to apply them, and things that matter to you, proprietary system tracking and reporting. A little well-crafted screenshot from CoachAccountable gives substance and meaning to words which, again, these words mean a ton to you, but they may not to someone with a perspective of who's just checking you out, who hasn't been doing this work for X months or years. Pictures that back it up give a sense of like, oh, okay, cool. This is the sort of thing that we work on, and I can see myself in that. And another thing you can sprinkle in from your CoachAccountable website is a really compelling way for people to get started. Right now, I've made some offerings. So again, from my account under offerings, the pitch that I have in this copy is, well, let's let them get going if they're excited to get going. And if they have questions, let's let them have a complimentary introductory call to get those questions answered. So I took a few minutes to create corresponding offerings for these things, put a price to this one and no price to that one, put them together in a bundle, made a bundle and added the two offerings, 1, 2. And then this little bundle has its ability to, again, be embedded. And that little script, cut and paste and put it into this portion of the page. And then suddenly you have this sort of live, actual, execution of this idea where we say here, hi, if you want to begin, this is a great question to answer on your website. If you want to begin and you're clear, get started. If you have questions, book a call. I think this is a very powerful thing to put in there. Like, let them know. We're just going to be very respectful of your time, because I think there's an awful lot of people, myself included, maybe I'm just projecting onto the world. I get suspicious of the, hey, call me for a free call and we'll work it out and we'll come up with a real plan for you. Well, okay. But will there be that sense of hard sell? Will there be that social expectation of reciprocity that works against us? This is a well-documented phenomenon in psychology. If you do something nice for them, we as generous and benign humans have this almost tendency, this will, this inclination, this almost sense of duty to reciprocate. So if someone gives you a free half-hour coaching call and then says, well, would you like to work on us? We all kind of know, I'm going to kind of want to. Will I feel pressured? Will I feel on the spot? Will I feel this sense of duty and obligation? And if you can work in your favor, but can also turn off a lot more people than you think, so that you're net below This is just food for thought in terms of how you structure your thing. And again, my personal preference and my advice for you to consider is make sure that the pricing is straightforward and upfront, and that the intro call is truly complimentary and doesn't have strings attached, whether real or imagined by people's sense of reciprocity. So there's that embedded widget right there that allows you to, again, put some sort of reality and see like, oh, wow, I can talk to a real person on this date. That's great. I'm just going to go. Fun things like that. And then there's one other final touch that I thought was kind of cool. We're going to just go to this one. Again, I'm just kind of distinguishing all the various visual elements that CoachAccountable provides, i.e., hey, you're using this system. You could actually use that as a real window into what the kind of work that you do. So people who are just checking you out, who don't know what this coaching thing is all about, or don't know what your coaching thing is all about, can actually see and get a glimpse in your process. This final touch thing is something that I think is kind of fun. Just a little, want to pull back the curtain? Maybe you're curious, go check it out. And then, a little link to a client export file. And again, this is the stuff of if you create a demo client of your own that has some sort of contrived, yet still representative and still in step with the kind of work that you do, data in there, session notes, action plans, some metrics that show before and after. You can generate that file really quick. I'll just show you real quick how you do it. Here we've got my demo client. Click the little download button, full date range. Yeah, let's include it all, chronological order, and you just download it. And this little file, again, can be something that you upload to your website and then link to it. Just, journeyman, ask your web guy or gal if you're not clear how to do this, but it's a 5-minute job max. So again, that's what we've done here. We've just linked to, hey, check it out. You can see this whole thing. And just a fun thing that you can do because it's cheeky, and it reveals like, hey, also this is kind of a savvy thing. You can just get it on your website. I made a little HTML representation of that exact same file of the client export, which again, you can download and embed it in this little iframe and show exactly what it looks like on a smartphone. And a little cheeky mention where again, these are things you have as a user of CoachAccountable. You can proudly tout them as like, hey, by the way, we're hip, we're modern. We get that you are going to do your work on the go. We make it easy for you to interact and engage with our coaching programs wherever is convenient for you. You can bring this work to your life. And so again, this is a real live. It's a little smaller. And then again, you can kind of have someone preview on their desktop exactly what it looks like on their smartphone, which is kind of fun. And those are some of the visual embellishments that you can add to your website. Also, which are again inspired by and given context for copywriting that's super in their world and makes a compelling offer. Kind of let's map it all out. Kind of in review, tuning your coaching pitch. Again, I've put on the webinar title. This is about your website, but it could be anything like a pitch deck, a brochure, anywhere where you're sort of visually presenting. Here's your coaching services. Two facets to it: write words that resonate and make visuals that resonate. And again, resonate is sort of a term of art of like really like be compelling in their world and show like, okay, I see this applies to me. I see this working for me. There's a division between them. There's two separate tasks, which is a good thing because again, it allows you to sort of divide and conquer and just do one and then the other in stepwise fashion. But be aware that words that resonate give the context for those visuals that resonate. Words that resonate is, it's a simple, not simple task. The way I define it is you just need to address and be responsible for addressing what it is that they want, what is it that they fear, and what is it that is in their way. And if you be responsible for all those things, you truly have the building blocks of a really great pitch. The way to suss out those things is, again, just doing that little exercise, getting your client's head as someone who is checking out my website, someone who managed for whatever reason to get there. What are they thinking? What are they out for? What are they solving for? That bit of empathy coupled with your own experience of having talked to your clients as many times as you have and for as long as you've been in the business should be fairly straightforward exercise, but doing it is so powerful and it's so easy to go ahead and write copy without ever doing that. So if you just put that into your process, you'll have a major leg up. And then there's a final thing that I say that's worth addressing, which is pricing, which is kind of a sub point under what's in their way. And maybe, some people again are really hip to and keen on, maybe stuck with the model called like you don't put pricing, you leave it as an open conversation. But again, that kind of creates this sort of fear that, well, is this a B2B negotiation? It almost creates an adversarial relationship between your clients because there's a fear that if that's the model, if it's not front and center, then I, as a person who's having this free phone call, need to temper my excitement. I need to make sure that I don't convey, wow, this is really great and going to be super valuable for me, because they might take that and use it against me to say, cool, I will charge you a price that is commensurate with that. You almost set up an adversarial relationship where you're not quite on the same page, and it creates this perverse incentive for people to be a little more skeptical and a little less excited about what you have to do. So omit pricing if you want, but being coy there does have a cost. Again, net, it can work in software, business to enterprise, sales, business to business. It's been working since the 60s, fine. May or may not be a fit for your model. So if you've been sold on it, give it some thought, keep it up if it's working for you, but maybe revisit, because transparency and pricing goes a long way to address the what's in their way, that true barrier. All right, so let me talk now a bit about the visuals that resonate. In it, you have the opportunity to show real results. Again, coaching is in so many ways an abstract process. So if you can show something like a metric or the things that have been done and happy stories, like actual instances of like, this is the sort of thing that can happen for you, it's very powerful and leaves a lot less to the imagination and a lot more to the sense of excitement. Like, oh, I kind of want that. That could be great. A glimpse of the process. Again, coaching is a very ephemeral, almost mystical thing if you've never experienced it. So if you can give someone a little view into, well, what happens? What sort of things are worked on? What sort of advice or marching orders or creations occur in those sessions? That pulls back the curtain, demystifies it. And again, if you've got something that, a process that you're really proud of, that's worth showing off. And with CoachAccountable, we've got this ability to very elegantly show it off. A way to start, this is not quite a visual, sort of a visual call to action sort of thing. If they're keen, if they're compelled by what you've put, make it clear, like, what do you think? You ready to go? Here's the way to get started. And just a few clicks self-service is a powerful way to sort of, again, strike while the iron is hot, as they say in sales. If you've done a good job, pitching what it is that you're offering, make it really easy and clear of how they can take the next step. And then finally, their portal. You're a coach, as a CoachAccountable user, you have this thing that you can give to them that is, again, has the potential to be a tremendous value add. This is actually a genuine selling point. We've heard from so many coaches that they are differentiated by the fact that they have a portal, that they have this system that means that the coaching is more than just the conversations that occur. It's a more tangible thing that helps them to do the work. It's a more tangible thing that helps them to follow through and to see the results and to watch the cadence and to be more in touch with you and feel connected and that you're supporting them. All those things, genuine selling points. So show it off. Show off proudly, like, hey, instead of it's an afterthought, like, oh yeah, well, welcome to the program. We use this thing here. Click here to register. You can actually make a more compelling and standout thing to say, like, we use this system. Your coaching will be very real and results-based, and we're all going to be able to see how it's going and be able to course correct and make sure that you're getting your money's worth and all that. Those are fun things that are worth bringing front and center if you see that you could actually do that. So that's it. That's what I have in terms of using CoachAccountable as a way to tune your coaching pitch to make a more compelling website presence that shows off what you do. Any questions?
Two questions for you. One, I missed how you downloaded the client record, but I mean, I know how to do that piece, but how did you make it show up in that slick version of an actual smartphone? I missed that piece.
Right on. So that's a little bit of, so this is where, like, this is one of those consult your web person. I can make this a little, I'll just kind of show you under the hood. So here's the markup. I just made a little div called iframe phone. I have an actual image. This is an image that you guys can download. Just right-click view source or right-click download. Is that right? Yeah. You can say that if you're so inclined. And then I put an iframe there. And then I put some special styling. I can change these to be all inline styles. Again, this is good. Not to make this too much of a web demo, but basically there's some styles that basically says, hey, iframe that sits in this little, that sits in the iPhone. Position yourself like this. The actual math has it lay over just right. This guy goes here, and the iframe phone has a few other attributes that make it just work. So what I'm hearing, Deborah, is it might be kind of cool if this is a nice little snippet of HTML that you could just cut and paste into your website with a link to your own little thing.
Yeah,
You
I
can
love that.
include Doc Miltein's record, but I don't know if it's going to be quite as resonant. But
Yeah, it's cool because we are a society that does everything from our smartphones, and a large percentage of clients do like this fact that they can do it from a tablet or their phone.
right on.
So that's cool. The other question I wanted to ask you is, have you or do you incorporate Coach Accountable as part of the initial conversation in some way, to give people either prior or as a part of the first call to show them the inside of that, how it works, and if so, how do you integrate that conversation?
Great question. So again, this is very much a matter of creation and personal preferences, and there's no right answer. But one of the things that I've said for the longest time is there's something very powerful, even just being able to point to it, like, this is how we're going to track your actions. This is how we're going to make a game plan, and I'll be able to see how it's going, and I'll be able to sort of, see what's getting done or not done, and we'll be able to skip the weather report during our calls because we'll have this sort of scoreboard. And then another thing is, like, and this is how we're going to do scheduling. It's going to be super simple. You can just click and schedule, and the system will text you or send you an email right before, so you're prepared. Or you're going to have this sort of pre-check-in to do before your sessions. So that's going to help you to think about these things. I mean, basically just talking through, here's how this works, here's how we're going to do it, and here's why that's going to give you more value, will allow them to sort of appreciate why it is you're using Coach Accountable at all.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That. Does this make sense? Does this resonate? Like I said, one thing I'm dying to know from the audience at large, like I said, it might be a controversial thing because I'm offering a lot of, here's what you shoulds, of course, take it or leave it, but here's what you shoulds. Does this jibe and sound like, okay, I could see this working? Or, no, Larson, this is crazy. No thanks, because we know better. Is that a loaded question? I won't be offended, I promise.
Well, I think you're right on track, John, as far as everything you talked about, as far as really getting into what is it that the client's looking for, what are their needs, and then how are you going to sync up with that. I think it's all a very important conversation. And I love how you've incorporated some of the under the hood visuals. I don't have that on my website, and I'm definitely going to be incorporating some of that. So thank you for doing that.
Nice.
Yeah, I would piggyback off those comments. I mean, I'm actually writing copy now for my website, and even last night I was looking at it thinking, God, it just feels like crap, and and just seriously, right? It's like I feel like I'm just like pulling words, and I got to use the right adjectives, and I got to say how good I am, even though it's a startup. And
right.
So even your point earlier, John, about, hey, just don't front load it with credentials. All right, that's interesting because I wouldn't have thought about it. Our natural reaction is credentials up front, establish credibility. So
we've all been taught that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Do people care about that? Just not right away.
You know what, John? In the 20 years or so I've been doing this, I have actually never had anybody ask me, am I certified? So I think that's really interesting. I think if you are authentic and you are meeting the client where they are, and they get that you understand where they are, and they have a sense that you know how to get them from where they are to where they want to go, it's just it's like it just doesn't come up. I just honestly have never had anybody ask me.
Yeah, because that's your real credential, right?
Yeah.
That you can get them where they want to go and that you understand them. I mean, to me, the parallels between no one asked me for my GPA.
Yeah.
Nobody cared. Not even my first employer. Don't get me wrong.
True.
Doing the work to get that GPA was important so that I could deliver. But nobody cares about the actual sign of that work. They care about what can you bring and what can you deliver.
Right.
It's funny. I forgot to mention, when it comes to this process of mapping out the customer's perspective, we did this with Coach Accountable, and like I said, we hired a professional firm to do it. it was not good. But then we learned this stuff and we did it, and we did 2 rounds of it where there was 2 different sort of waves of refining the homepage and a couple of the other pages, and each one gave about a 30% lift to our signups. Crazy good, like off the charts, because our copy was pretty decent back in the day. But then when we actually did the work to get in line and again connected to like all that we knew about what Coach Accountable can deliver, that made all the difference. And it was exciting because one of the redesigns that we did was our about page, where I talked a little bit about me and my vision to do great by coaching and what shortcomings I saw and how I think I could fix them as a programmer who gets coaching as well. Yeah, nobody cared. Not quite nearly as much. I guess to put a point on this and summarize our own experience that probably maps onto yours. People like Coach Accountable because what they see and not because who John Larson is. And conversely, no one has ever been impressed by Coach Accountable and then saw, oh, it's made by this guy? No thanks. So that same thing I think applies to you guys as coaches very well, which again should give you some peace, some relief from what you were talking about, Donald, having to puff up words and say, yeah, I'm the real deal. You earn being the real deal by being in their world, by resonating. And there you have it. That's how to tune your coaching pitch, or more specifically, how, an inquiry into what's missing from your coaching website. If any of these things are missing, you might have a good deliberate reason why they are, but if you've never thought about it, they might be worth including. Thanks for watching.